Welcome to Colorful Tamiko, a dot coloring channel for beginners. Today this tutorial is going to be about basic pencil techniques for beginners. I want to start out with some basic techniques for beginners to use when you're dot coloring. I know a lot of it seems self-explanatory, but it's really not. I get a lot of questions from colorists, just basically how to hold your pencil and how to get the same effects in coloring that I get. And so the reason I'm starting out with the very bare basics is so that beginners can feel more comfortable when trying to color in their adult coloring books. So the first thing you want to do when you are coloring in your coloring books, in your adult coloring books, is learn how to hold your coloring pencil. And the basic thing that you would want to do is just hold your pencil like you would hold it if you were writing. But you don't want a really tight grip on your pencil. You want to have a really relaxed grip, and when you lessen your grip on the pencil, it lessens the pressure that you put onto the paper. And this also helps to prevent pencil breakage, because when you're pressing too hard, you might break the lead on the pencil. It also helps to lessen hand fatigue, because when you're pressing too hard and you're pressing that pencil into your paper, your hand is going to get tired. And if you have arthritis issues like me and some people, you're going to find that holding your pencil at a really tight grip is really going to start to make your hand cramp up in the middle of your coloring, which is going to make you not really enjoy coloring or what you're doing. Another thing you want to remember, that when coloring, you want to always have a sharp lead. You want to have a really sharp lead to get into the tooth of the pencil. The tooth of the paper. The sharper the lead, the easier it is for the pencil to get into the tooth of the pencil. The tooth of the paper. I don't know why I keep saying pencil. So I'm going to sharpen my pencil first to try to get a better lead. Actually, I'm going to use my pencil sharpener that is a Faber-Castell pencil sharpener and try to get a better point on this. So you want a great point on your pencil like that. And the reason for that is because you want the pencil to be able to lay down the color on the tooth of the paper. When I say tooth of the paper looks like it's flat, but when you choose a paper or you choose your coloring pages, you want a book that has paper that has tooth. And when I say tooth, it's kind of like the paper is like, it looks like this. I just broke my pen. It looks like that. And so you want the pencil to be able to get into those grooves of the paper. It's basically what you're trying to do. And you don't want a glossy type of paper, because if it's glossy, the pencil will just glide across the paper instead of actually getting into the tooth of the paper like this. Okay. And so another thing that you want to remember when coloring is that you want to make sure that you rotate your pencil slightly every few minutes when you're coloring. The reason I say that is because If you want to keep a sharp lead, the best way to keep a sharp lead instead of having to keep sharpening your pencil, you want to sharpen your pencil as less as you have to, because that eats up your pencil, and you want your pencils to last as long as you can, because pencils aren't really cheap. So if you rotate the pencil every few minutes when you're coloring, basically when I'm coloring, every few minutes I stop and rotate the pencil, and then color again, and then rotate the pencil, and then color again. That helps keep a even lead on your pencil and helps keep the lead point sharp. And it makes laying down the color easier. And it helps the color to go into the tooth of the paper also. So when you're coloring, there's basic techniques to coloring and basic techniques you can use to lay down color on a page. And one technique to lay down color on a page is you can zigzag. You can either color like a coil shape, or you can scrumble. And I'll show you a zigzag. A zigzag is more like just back and forth like this. And some people do that a lot when they're coloring. So you can use the zigzag technique. It's just basically back and forth like this to fill in the color on a page. And it actually fills in the color quite fast when you do a zigzag technique. Also, you want to make sure that you hold your pencil further back so that you're not pressing hard on the lead of the pencil. And that can help prevent breakage. And it also can help give an even layer of color being laid down. So you can hold the pencil, if you hold it back here, you're basically better at getting an even layer. And then the next technique to use is coil. And coil is kind of like in big circles. And it's basically like this. And some people use that. I don't use this one that much, because if you see, when you use this one, you get a lot of white still on the page. Other than with zigzagging, you're covering a big area and you have less white on the page. And with coiling, you have to go back over it a lot of times just to get rid of that white on the page. And so I'm going to rotate my pencil because I'm getting... But I don't see people using coiling that much, or big... Coiling is like using big circles. And like I said, it just, to me, it's just really hard to cover up the tooth of the paper with coiling. Scrambling is another technique to use, and scrambling is what I use the most. If I'm not doing the zigzag technique, I'm doing a scrambling technique. And the scrambling technique is just little small light feathering circles. It's done by using tiny circular strokes. So you use small circles with light pressure for even coverage. It kind of feels like when you were a kid and you were scribbling. That's what scrambling reminds me of. And scrambling is just... Can you guys see this? Actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see what I'm saying. Okay. There we go. So scrambling is tiny circles. And you just... Tiny little circles. And this one I use a lot to fill in a coloring section on the page. And it takes a little more time to do scrambling, but what I like about scrambling is that it gets rid of the tooth and the white of the paper more, and you don't have to go over it so many times, because you get, with those small circles, you get a lot of coverage. So it may take longer, but it's a better outcome to me. And I actually had to practice scrambling because I was doing more of a zigzag when I first started out, and I noticed that I was not really getting an even coverage like I do with scrambling. And I didn't know about scrambling. So that's one reason why I'm going over these basic techniques, because some people just, you just don't know. You want to color. I mean, but, I didn't know there were certain techniques to coloring. Okay, so scrambling is one of the most techniques that I use. Another one would be hatching. And hatching is done by making straight parallel lines next to each other. The closer the strokes and the more pressure you use, the darker it becomes. If you like your pencil strokes to be visible, use this method. I've seen this done when you want some texture look for your coloring, like say if you were doing a tree or brick or hair, you want it to have a texture look, you would use hatching. And it's just, you just basically make straight lines until you fill up the page. Till you fill up, your coloring section. And hatching takes a while too. I might use hatching sometimes when I'm doing leaves and I want to do, or when I'm doing flowers and I want to have a texture look and I want the lines to be visible. Rotate my pencil some so that I can keep an even lid. But when you're hatching, you kind of have to go over it a couple of times to fill in the whiteness of the paper. And it just depends on whatever you're coloring and how you want that to look. So that's hatching. Did I not? Oh my gosh. You cannot even see that. All right. So hatching is straight lines, and I'll do it again because it looks like my paper wasn't even in the camera. Sorry, guys. Okay, so you just do straight lines when you're hatching. And you keep doing that until you fill in the area that you're coloring. But like I said, the most when I use this is when I'm coloring something that I want to show texture and I want the lines to show through. Is when I do hatching. Now another technique that you use when I'm coloring is cross hatching. And I'm going to switch my pencil for this. And cross hatching is hatching, but it involves hatching parallel lines in one direction and then hatching over those lines in another direction. It works great for shading and also adding texture. So hatching is, cross hatching, you would do your lines like you normally do when you're hatching, and then you would go over those lines. And this is the least one I've seen in most coloring. I don't really see too much hatching, cross hatching. But again, you can use it for when you want to show some texture in your coloring. It depends on what you're doing on your coloring page when you would use hatching. Another technique would be stippling. And stippling takes the most time to do. It's done by holding the pencil straight up and down like this and dotting the paper. The closer the dots are, the more you can shade and the darker the color becomes. So it's basically just up and down dots. It's dots. And I've seen this one stippling done a lot with color pencils. I also seen stippling done a lot with markers. A lot of people like to use stippling with markers and fine liners. And it's up to you how close you want the dots to be. If you want it just to be dots to fill in the space. But this one takes the most time to do. It's stippling. And it's just up and down and getting those dots in there. And I'm going to rotate my pencil. Okay, so I'm not going to do that whole page. That whole box, but you get the idea of what stippling is. The next technique is that you will need to learn how to do is shading. Shading is very, very important when coloring and when coloring in your coloring books. When you shade, you basically want to hold the pencil tip at an angle, and that's helpful for when you shade. So you want to hold the pencil like, you don't want to hold the pencil like this. You want to hold the pencil like this, like at an angle. You want your hand to be back further. And when you do this shading, it reduces harsh marks and gives a more even coverage. Mastering shading gives you a basis to advance your skills and bring your coloring to life by introducing light and shade. So I'm going to try shading in this box. And you just basically want very light pressure. And you want even coverage. Now when you're shading, you can do coil, you can do zigzag, you can do scrambling, you can do hatching, stippling, but it's just very light pressure using any one of those techniques I just said. And right now I'm using scrambling. I'm shading and scrambling. I'm doing tiny small circles to fill in the area. And I'm going to rotate my pencil a little. But you have to practice shading, because once you master shading, it's just the beginning of learning adult coloring and how to make your coloring look artistic. So shading is a very, very basic step, but it takes practice to master it. And I'm just adding very light pressure, and you want your pencil to just glide across the area. You basically don't want any harsh lines or one spot darker than the other. You want even coverage. And that happens when you do very light pressure and when your hand is further back on the pencil. When your hand is further up on the pencil, you tend to press on it really hard. And that doesn't give you even coverage. So that's shading. Now, you can shade very lightly, like I just did this one. And then you can shade just by layering and getting it to be darker and darker and darker. Now, the next thing to learn when coloring is layering. And I just spoke on layering a little bit. Now, when layering, you want to kind of blend two colors together. Layering two colors together creates a third color. When a dark coloring, this is an essential skill to learn, and it takes practice to master. You can achieve this by going back and forth with both colors with light pressure until the colors begin to blend. You can use scrambling, hatching, stippling, any of those to layer. So I'm going to layer two colors together to make one color. And I'm going to use a red and a yellow to make orange. So the red I'm going to use is this magenta. And then the yellow that I'm going to use is this deco yellow. And we're going to layer two colors to make one color, which will be orange. And you can do that with any of your pencils in your pencil set. And I know your pencil set has, like my Prismacolor pencil set comes with 50 pencils, I think. I think it's 150, if I'm not mistaken. But not only do I get 150, when I mix colors together like red and yellow, I can make orange. Or if I mix other colors together, I can make another color. You get what I'm saying? So so now I have 151 different colors. So you can do that with all of your pencils in your set. And when you do that, you get more out of your pencils. You get a more range of color, and you get a uniqueness in your pictures. So layering is a good thing to learn and to play with your pencil sets. So let's start off with layering in this box right here. I'm going to lay down red, and then we're going to lay down yellow to make orange. And I'm just going to shade that on there, just like we did the blue up there in the shading. And we're just going to get that red right on in there. Trying to do this a little bit faster. So I'm not using scrambling. I'm basically using the zigzag technique. Or maybe the coiling, whichever one, but it's not scrambling. Yeah, scramble right here just to get that in. So yeah. So now that we have our red laid down, let's go over that a little bit. And make that just a little bit darker. Give it another layer. All right, so now we're going to add our our yellow. And then you have to press a little bit harder. You need a little harder pressure when you use your second layer. And we're trying to get orange. And it's always easier to lay your darker color first. Usually, when I'm layering trying to get two colors, I do my darker color first. And then I do my lighter color. But some people do it differently and do they lighter color than they darker color. So you can see that beginning to look like it's got some orange to it instead of red. Now, I'm going to have to add a little more pressure to get that orange. But you get what I'm saying when I say if you blend two colors together, layer two colors together to create a different color. Let's try to put some more red in there. And sometimes it helps when you're shading. As you saw what I did, I went one way and then I went this way to get it coverage and to reduce the whiteness in the paper, on the paper. See, now we have an orange color instead of red. So I'm going to put a little more yellow on there. Try to get rid of some of that too. So I'm going to go the opposite way, like I did with the red. And now I got orange. So I don't know how I got blue right there, but that's how you get layer two colors to make a different color. Now, if I wanted to keep going with this, if I kept going with this and add more red and add more yellow and more red and more yellow and more red and more yellow back and forth, and eventually press hard with the yellow, I would burnish this. And burnishing is when you press really hard over the area to get rid of the tooth. And that's how you burnish something. So if I was to press harder over this, I could burnish it. So basically burnishing is just a hard pressure. And so we can try that here. We're going to try burnishing here. And like I said, it's achieved by applying heavy pressure with your pencil. This flattens the tooth of the paper and fills in all the white areas to create a glazed look. And so you basically just, when you go in really hard, you're burnishing. It's heavy pressure. And you're basically smashing that color into that paper. And by smashing that color into that paper, you kind of get a glazed look. Like there's no tooth showing through the paper. Now, there's different ways to get the burnishing look, and there's different methods to get the burnishing look, but I think I'll go over that in a different video. When we talk about blending, we'll talk more about burnishing. But burnishing is just pressing your pencil really hard, not too hard. You don't want to break the lead. And I'm still rotating that pencil, and you just go over it and over it and over it until you get the look you want, and until most of the white of the tooth is gone. The white of the tooth of the paper is gone. And that's how you burnish. So you see how that compared to that, how there's no tooth showing in the paper really in that. That's the difference in burnishing your colors. And it's not hard to achieve. But like I said, there's other methods to burnishing, and I will go over that and how to do burnishing in the next video, which will be how to blend your pencils together. So next we're going to move on to shade and gradients. And this is another technique that you really, really need to learn and you really need to practice doing, because if you can master this, you really will bring your art up to a different level of coloring. So you got to learn how to shade gradients, and basically that's just going from a dark, with the same color, you're going to go from dark to light, and then dark to light to dark again. And that's how you shade ingredients. And I'll show you how to do that here. So by gently fading one color into the other with light pressure, you can do this with lighter and darker shades of the same color or with different colors. You can also place a lighter color next to a darker one, such as yellow next to blue will cause the lighter color to appear as a highlight and the darker as a shadow. And I'll show you that down here when we make a gradient. I'll show you exactly what they mean by placing a lighter color next to a darker color to make a shadow. So we'll do that there. But right now, I'm going to show you what shading gradient is. And basically, you're just shading from dark to light with the same color. Scoot that over. So you want to go in dark with a heavy pressure. And then when we get to about the halfway point, we're going to lighten up and go light. So I say right about here, we're going to lighten up and go light. And once you master this, you'll see why it's so important to learn how to do this, how to go from dark to light with one color, because that's how you create your shadows and effects in your coloring. And that's how you make your coloring pop, by learning how to do gradients. So you basically just went from dark to light in one stroke. So if you can learn how to go from dark to light back to dark again, let's try that. So we'll go from dark here, and then when we get halfway down, we'll go light, and then we'll go dark again. So now I'm going to go light, and I'm going to ease up on the pressure. Ease up on the pressure. And then I'm going to go back dark. And I'm going to start that right here. And if you can master this, I'm telling you, you will see your coloring change so much, and it won't be just a plain looking coloring. It will look like your artist, and you're actually having some shallow and highlights to everything. So I'm just going to go over that a little. And then go over that really light. But this is a technique that you really want to try to master, is shading gradients. You really want to be able to go from your dark to your light, to dark to light to dark. Now, I also said that when you're making gradients, you can do this with lighter and darker shades of the same color. And this is dark to light with the same color, or with different colors, like placing a lighter color next to a darker one, such as yellow next to blue, will cause the lighter color to appear as a highlighter and the darker as a shadow. So let me find, I'm going to do one where it's two different colors instead of one that's just instead of one color. And I'm going to do a blue next to it like a yellow to make a gradient. And this pencil looks like it needs sharpening. Well, let's sharpen that. Okay, that's better. So when you make a gradient, you want to do, I usually want to do a color that are like in the same color family. But we'll try this. So you basically want to start out with hard pressure when you're making a gradient of two different colors. And then you're starting out with hard pressure, and then you want to let up on the pressure, and you want to go really light. Let's try to go over that again. So you're going to start out with hard pressure. And sometimes you have to do more than one layer. And then you want to go really light. And so we're going to do that into a yellow. And usually when you do blue and yellow together, it makes green. And it looks like I have red on the end of this pencil. So I want to clean this pencil off. Make sure I don't have any red on it. And I actually want to sharpen it too. Let me sharpen that. Okay, that looks better. Then you want to start right where you left off with the light pressure. And you want to put that right up into there. Right up into where it was light pressure. And so when you have a dark color next to a light color, it makes a gradient, and it makes it look like a shadow. The dark would be the shadow, and the light would be the highlight. And so to show you that, like say for instance, if you were doing that on a coloring page on a flower or something, I did a flower here, and we're going to do a gradient with a lighter color instead of we're going to do it with two of the same color, a dark blue and a light blue, because I think that will look better than blue and yellow. And I'm going to do this little leaf right here that I drew out. Well, actually my husband drew it out because I can't draw worth a lick. So anytime I need something drawn, I ask my husband. And so I'm going to do these two colors, which would be I don't even know how to pronounce that, Copenhagen Blue, PC 906, and Cloud Blue, PC 1029. And so when you're doing a highlight and a shadow, you want to lay down a darker color first as the shadow. And so we'll do it the same way as we did up here. And this is why learning how to go from dark to light is important. Because if this was a flower on a coloring book, and on a page, this was what you would do to make the flower not just look plain. You want it to pop and have some highlights and some shadows and stuff. And so I'm just going in with even pressure, like medium pressure kind of, not light, not hard. So when I get right here, I'm going to lighten up right here so I can bring that light blue into this dark blue to make a highlight. And then I'm going to take the light blue, exactly where that line is, to make a seamless color transfer from dark to light. Right where that light is, you're going to take the light, and with hard pressure, you're going to go into the blue, to the dark blue. And you're just going to color, lay down that with medium pressure still, all the way to the top. We're just going to give it a little more color. This is a very light blue. So I don't know if you can see that light blue as good as I can see it. But that's how you would make a highlight and a shadow. It's by taking a dark color and making a gradient with it. And that's how you would get that shadow look if you were coloring in a coloring book. So I'm going to make this just a little bit darker. This flower is so big. You don't know what I was thinking when I asked him to do it this big. But I just wanted it to be big so you guys could see what I'm saying. And when I do my blending tutorial, I'm going to take it from a worksheet, and then I'll show you exactly how to do that in the coloring book also. So that way you can see how it would look on a coloring page and how to do blending and gradients on a coloring page. But that's going to be in the next video. I just wanted to do the basics so that you will understand what the basics are in a dark coloring. And I'm just adding another layer. Yeah. And so I'm going to try that again, but I'm going to use red and orange. So red could be red can be the shadow, and orange can be the highlight. And this is me doing two different colors instead of the same color. Like these are the same color, they're both blue, but one's just lighter than the other. Now on this one, these are two different colors, a blue and a orange, but you still can do a highlight that way. So you start off with regular pressure. And then when we get up to the tip or midway, we're going to lighten that up so we can introduce our other color. And I'm going to make it a little darker down here just to get rid of some of that tooth. There. So right where it's light, right there, we're going to add another color. I think let's do a pink color. Let me get my pink, and then we'll do a pink color. Oops. Okay, so I have my pink color, and my pink color is going to be pink, and number PC929. And again, I'm using Prismacolor pencils. So I'm going to sharpen this a little bit. And so right where we let up on the pressure, right there where the red is, we're going to introduce pink. And you start off with medium pressure, hard pressure. And you just go straight up and add that pressure. And I'm still rotating my pencil like I showed you guys. I'm just adding another layer so that it's dark. And so now we have a gradient of pink and red. So we have one that's our highlight, which is the pink, and one that's our shadow, which is the red. So I think we're coming to the end of the video, and just these basic things, if you can learn these basic things, the gradients and the shading and layering of the colors, and then you learn the basic pencil techniques, the zigzagging, the coiling, and the scrambling, I think you're on a start to getting your adult coloring in a good spot. So a good coloring should always have a spectrum of light to dark areas of different pencil pressure to create contrast. So as a rule of thumb, start with the lightest color and lightest amount of pressure when you begin coloring with colored pencils. Remember, it's a lot easier to add dark colors over light colors than light colors over dark colors. And if you can remember these basic techniques, your dark coloring will improve, and you will begin to make your dark coloring more artistic and learn how to make your colors pop off your page. Thank you guys for listening to this video. Please don't forget to click the notification button for when I have new video coming out, and also subscribe. The next video is going to be about blending techniques, so I don't want you guys to miss that. So thank you again for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, and have a colorful day. Thank you.